You ever have a moment so outrageous, so humiliating, that your body goes numb? Not from fear, not even from shock, but from the weight of years, generations, telling you, this isn't new. That's how I felt when they pulled me from my first class seat. Not because I did anything wrong, not because I caused a scene, but because I was black. And that, apparently, was reason enough. Let me back up. My name's Marcus. I'm 35 years old, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. Single mom, 2 jobs, beat the odds, you know the drill. First in my family to graduate college, got a full ride in computer engineering, turned a dorm room idea into a company now worth 8 figures. We build AI-driven logistics platforms, boring to most people, but it powers half the tech you use without even knowing it. I don't say that to brag. I say that because I've earned my seat, every seat I've ever taken, including the one in 1A on Flight 227, bound for LAX. It was a late afternoon flight. I just wrapped a 10-day tech summit in Switzerland, the kind of conference where everybody wears Patagonia vests and thinks diversity is having one Asian guy named Kyle on the panel. I was dead tired. I just wanted to board, sip a whiskey, and nap till wheels down. I got the upgrade automatically. My assistant, Jules, always books flex business, and thanks to my miles, and maybe my black Amex, the airline bumped me to first. Seat 1A. Window. Quiet. Peace. I show my boarding pass. The gate agent, let's call her Susan, because of course, smiles tight. But her eyes do that thing. That flicker. The kind that calculates your clothes, your skin tone, your beard, and doesn't quite add up. She scans the pass again. Frowns. You're in first class? She asks. I nod. Yep. 1. She looks again. Like it might change. You sure this isn't a mistake? She says, loud enough for people behind me to hear. I feel the air shift. The quiet murmur of business, travelers pausing to glance. I stay calm. I've been here before. No mistake. You just scanned it. Want me to pull it up again? I tap my phone. The same boarding pass shines on screen. She forces a smile. Just wait here a second. She walks off. Behind me, a white guy in a polo shirt gets scanned through without question. Then another. Then another. After 5 minutes, she comes back. Sir, we've checked with the flight crew. That seat might have been double booked. I'm going to need you to wait while we resolve it. I raise an eyebrow. I boarded first. And it says my name. Yes, but there's a system glitch, and a flight attendant appears behind her. Older gray bob, no-nonsense face. You'll need to take a seat at the back for now, she says. We'll sort it after takeoff. Now, my patience thins. Respectfully, no. That's my assigned seat. The gate agent crosses her arms. Sir, if you can't comply, we'll have to call security. I look around. Eyes are on me. I see people filming. Others pretending not to watch. And I feel it again, that numbness. Not because it hurts, but because it's so damn familiar. I pull out my phone. Quietly hit record. I'm happy to comply. But I want it on record that I'm being removed from a seat I paid for, with valid documentation, without any cause, while white passengers were allowed through without question. The attendant freezes. Her lips twitch. The gate agent stammers. They escort me to the back anyway. Row 29. Middle seat. Near the toilets. No one says a word. The people in my original row avoid eye contact. But that's okay, because I've played this game before. And I don't raise my voice. I raise the stakes. I sat in row 29, wedged between 2 strangers. On my left, a man in a wrinkled dress shirt who smelled like old coffee. On my right, a woman who refused to move her tote bag from under her feet, forcing me to tuck mine awkwardly against the seat in front of me. The roar of the jet engines hadn't started, but my heart already had. Not from panic, not from nerves, but from a steady, controlled rage. I'd been humiliated. And worse, I was used to it. The flight attendant who'd escorted me back had that look. The one you get from someone who's convinced they're just following protocol. But protocol has a funny way of bending, doesn't it? Especially when your skin isn't the shade they expect in first class. The man now sitting in my original seat in 1A, white, mid-40s, loafers, Bluetooth in his ear. Didn't even glance my way during boarding. I knew the type. He'd get his wine poured before takeoff, his extra pillow fluffed. He wouldn't be asked to prove anything. The same flight attendant who demoted me walked by our row. She didn't even make eye contact. Just handed me a cup of water, like I was some charity case. Plastic cup. Lukewarm. No smile. I sipped it anyway. Calm. Focused. Because while they thought I'd accepted this, I was already 3 steps ahead. I flipped open my phone discreetly. The video I'd recorded at the gate was solid. Their voices were audible. My boarding pass clearly visible. The look on their faces? Damning. I tucked the phone away. The plane began taxiing. As it rolled toward the runway, I did what I always do in moments like this. I compartmentalized. Not out of weakness, but out of survival. It's a skill black folks learn early. You bottle it. You smile. You act like you're not bleeding on the inside. But I wasn't bleeding. I was boiling. The woman beside me finally spoke after 20 minutes of awkward silence. Was that you in first class earlier?" she asked, voice low. I looked over. Her eyes were kind. Uneasy. "Yeah," I said. "I saw what happened," she whispered. "That wasn't right." I gave a short nod. "No, it wasn't." I thought about saying something. I didn't want to make it worse. She looked guilty. I didn't blame her. This system wasn't built for confrontation. It was built for compliance. "It's okay," I said gently. "You saw it. That's what matters." And she did. So did a few others. I saw the way people's phones subtly angled toward me when the confrontation happened. I knew how social media worked. One video from my side, another from a bystander. And suddenly, they'd have 2 angles of the same injustice. But I didn't post anything. Not yet. Because what I had in mind needed precision, not noise. The hours dragged. My legs cramped. I didn't complain. I didn't demand anything. But I took notes. The flight crew passed me several times. Not once did they acknowledge the seat change or apologize. They treated me like an afterthought, a disruption to their flow. Every glance felt like a silent judgment. Except for one. A young black flight attendant, maybe early 30s, walked the aisle midway through the flight. She paused when she saw me. I saw the recognition in her eyes. The tightness in her jaw. She didn't say a word. But her gaze said everything. I saw what they did. "I'm sorry. You don't deserve this." She moved on quickly. Probably didn't want to risk her job. And that, more than anything, pissed me off. That someone like her had to swallow it every day. Smile through it. Just to keep her paycheck. When the plane finally landed at LAX, everyone stood up the moment the seatbelt sign dinged. But I stayed seated. I wasn't rushing anywhere. I had work to do. I waited until most of the cabin emptied. My row neighbor mumbled something about, "Hope your day gets better." I smiled politely. She meant well. As I stood, the older flight attendant who'd sent me back caught my eye. She gave a quick, dismissive nod, like this whole thing had been a mild inconvenience for her. I gave her nothing back. Just a quiet walk to the front. But just as I reached the exit door, I paused. Turned around slowly. She looked confused. "I hope you remember this moment," I said. Her brow furrowed. "Excuse me." I said, "I hope you remember this moment." "Because I will." And with that, I stepped off the plane. The California sun hit me like a spotlight the moment I stepped onto the jet bridge. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was focused. I walked past the baggage claim crowd like a ghost, not even hearing the hum of voices and rolling luggage. My mind was a vault, sealed tight around one thing: execution. Outside, my driver, Eli, ex-military, loyal as blood, was waiting by the black SUV. His eyes scanned me immediately. "You good, sir?" he asked. "Not yet," I said, sliding into the back seat. He didn't ask questions. Just drove. As we pulled onto the freeway, I texted Jules. "I need the flight incident clipped from gate to sea change. Pull all passenger recorded footage if it surfaced. Also connect me with Darien at Altos Legal. Emergency." I didn't need to explain. Jules had been with me for 7 years. She was used to the sudden storms. By the time we hit the hotel, the first ping hit my phone. Twitter. At Trendy Techmom. Just watched a black man get downgraded from first class to economy on camera despite a valid ticket. Guess who wasn't asked to move? The white guy who took his seat. Do better. Hashtag Skyway Airlines. Hashtag Flying While Black. It had 14K retweets in under an hour. A second video showed up under the tweet. The angle was from behind the gate. You could clearly see me standing calmly, holding my boarding pass, while the gate agent tried to smile through her lie. Then came the part where she called security. No aggression on my part. Just her discomfort. This was good. This was powerful. But this wasn't enough. By the time I reached my suite, Jules had already compiled the internal flight logs, my original booking confirmation, and the time-stamped call from my personal concierge who'd confirmed the seat assignment before I left Zurich. Everything matched. Everything proved it wasn't a glitch. I was targeted. I pulled out my laptop, logged into Onyx Systems' private executive portal. 1 month ago, we'd acquired a small but crucial company, AeroStream Logic. They handled back-end optimization software for 6 major airlines, scheduling, crew dispatch, real-time updates, including Skyway Airlines, which meant their systems now ran on our code, which meant they were now, technically, our client. I clicked on the integration access logs. The same software that glitched and double-booked my seat? We wrote it. I smiled. They didn't know who they were messing with. I called Jules. Set a 9 a.m. meeting with the Skyway board, I said. They're not our direct client, she reminded me carefully. AeroStream is. They'll want to talk, I said calmly. Because if they don't, our software might just need a 72-hour maintenance window. Imagine what happens to their flight tracking if it stalls for even 2 hours. Imagine that hitting the press tomorrow. Jules exhaled. Got it. I'll set it up. I leaned back in my chair. Closed my eyes. I thought about my mom. How she used to sit me down and teach me to speak with my eyes first, not my mouth. Because your mouth can get you killed, she used to say. But your silence? Your silence can scare them more than your scream. She was right. The internet raged through the night. By morning, 5 different major news sites had picked up the video. Hashtags were trending. Hashtag First Class While Black. Hashtag Skyway Shame. Hashtag Black Excellence Denied. And still, I hadn't said a word. Not a single interview. Not one social media post. Because I wasn't done yet. I didn't want an apology. I wanted a lesson they'd never forget. At exactly 8:59 a.m., I walked into the 22nd floor boardroom at the AeroStream Logic headquarters. I wasn't alone. Jules was already inside, seated at the far end of the table. She wore a navy blazer, crisp and commanding, a subtle smirk tucked into her cheek. She nodded once as I entered. The silence said everything. On the other side of a glass table sat 4 men and 1 woman, all in various shades of pale panic. Their eyes flicked up from their tablets when they saw me. The CEO of AeroStream stood, hand outstretched. Marcus, good morning. I didn't shake it. Let's begin. He pulled his hand back awkwardly and cleared his throat. We were briefed this morning about a situation involving Skyway Airlines. A regrettable misunderstanding, clearly. I said nothing. Just opened my folder. Inside, screenshots, confirmed logs, time-stamped boarding records, and a single high-resolution still image from the viral video. Me, calm, holding my pass, while the gate agent looked on, pretending I didn't belong. I'm not here to talk about misunderstandings, I said flatly. I'm here because the software your team licenses to Skyway was used to validate their lie. One of the executives shifted nervously. Marcus, another began, you have to understand, Skyway is a key partner. A public backlash could cost them millions. Then they should have thought about that before targeting me like a criminal in a $5,000 suit. I cut in, voice low but lethal. No one spoke. I slid the folder down the table. They have 72 hours to do the following. 1. Issue a public apology addressed directly to me, using my full name and the truth. 2. Terminate the gate agent and flight supervisor responsible. 3. Fund a new DI initiative focused on anti-bias training across their entire North American staff. The CEO blinked. That's quite a list. I leaned forward slightly. That's mercy. They glanced at each other, whispered, fumbled. I didn't rush them. I didn't blink. Finally, the legal advisor at the end of the table cleared her throat. And if they refuse? I smiled. Then Aerostream Logic revokes their back-end support until a new agreement is drawn. You'd collapse their flight operations. They almost collapsed my dignity. Silence. Heavy. Measured. Embarrassed. I stood. Remind them I didn't want war. I wanted whiskey and a window seat. Their racism chose this path. I'm just walking it with purpose. As I turned to leave, the CEO spoke again. His voice was quieter now. Less corporate. More human. Marcus, you're right. And I'm sorry this happened to you. I paused at the door. Looked over my shoulder. It didn't just happen to me, I said. It happens every damn day. I just have a louder mic. Back in the car, Jules was already fielding press calls. They're begging for a statement, she said, not looking up from her phone. CNN, NBC, even the New York Times. I shook my head. Not yet. Let them sweat, she chuckled. So what now? I stared out the window. We wait. People like to say, success is the best revenge. But they forget, success doesn't erase what built it. It doesn't delete the insults, the invisible ceilings, the doorways slammed shut before you even knew they existed. It just gives you the power to walk through them anyway. Before I was the man in 1A, I was the kid in 1B, back of the class, near the radiator that always clanked. And even back then, the world taught me I was already too much of something and not enough of everything else. Too black, too quiet, too ambitious, too poor. I was raised in Southwest Atlanta, single mom, stronger than steel, softer than gospel. My mother's name is Lorraine, a CNA by day, a cleaner by night, and a miracle worker in between. We didn't have much, but she gave me two things that I've never let go of, self-respect and purpose. She didn't raise me to survive. She raised me to outlast. Every Sunday, she'd iron my school shirts with precision, making sure the collar stayed stiff, even if the seams were frayed. People see the crease before they see your soul, she'd say. Give them no reason to underestimate you, except their own ignorance. And still, they did. In 6th grade, my teacher told my mom I was too distracted to be placed in advanced math, that I didn't have the right focus. What she meant was, I solved the problems too fast, and that made her uncomfortable. Mom didn't argue. She just bought me old textbooks from a thrift store and challenged me to prove them wrong. I did. By 9th grade, I was tutoring my classmates, then my teacher's nephew. By 11th, I was building basic code in the school library, while most kids were still wrestling with Algebra 2. But nothing really changed. I was always the black kid who spoke so well. The kid they'd pull out of photo shoots because it's better optics if we use someone more representative of the student body. They wanted my brain, not my face, not my name. The real turning point came when I got to college. It still feels surreal saying that. Even with a full scholarship, I didn't feel like I belonged. Not really. Orientation week, I introduced myself in a study group, and one guy, white of course, laughed and said, "You sure you're not here on an athletic scholarship?" I was carrying a backpack, not a basketball. But racism doesn't need logic, just audacity. Instead of clapping back, I challenged him to a coding sprint. 5 problems, 30 minutes. I beat him in 18. He never spoke to me again. But the room never forgot me either. That's when I started building a small app for student meal sharing. Then a campus-wide logistics tracker. Then a beta AI platform that started predicting bus arrival delays more accurately than the school's own system. By junior year, I turned those prototypes into a company, Onyx Systems, named after the stone that absorbs negative energy and transforms it into strength. We didn't raise venture capital. We built quietly, efficiently. While everyone else chased headlines, we chased results. By the time the world noticed us, we were already powering supply chains in 10 countries. And even then, they still questioned it. Who's really running it? You're the CEO, but who owns the tech? Can we meet the founders? I was the founder. But I'd learned early. Some people don't want to see a black man win. They want to believe you tripped into success. That it was a fluke. That there's someone smarter behind the curtain. There wasn't. Just me. And my mother's voice in the back of my mind, whispering, never let them mistake your silence for weakness. It's the echo of your plan unfolding. Onyx Systems didn't explode overnight. It grew in silence, like roots under concrete. My first client wasn't sexy. It was a local delivery company in Atlanta that handled same-day shipping for small businesses. They had trucks, but no system. Routes overlapped. Drivers were underpaid. Clients were fed up. I walked in with nothing but a laptop, a prototype app, and a pitch deck I'd built in Google Slides. The COO, a sharp-tongued woman in her 50s, leaned back and said, "And why should I trust you with my logistics when you look like you just stepped out of a dorm?" I smiled. "Because my dorm system solved more problems last week than your entire dispatch team did in 3 months." She blinked. 2 weeks later, we had a pilot contract. For months after that, her trucks were running 21% more efficiently. Word spread. Onyx went from handling local couriers to regional supply chains. We started integrating AI prediction models. Nothing fancy at first. Just smart routing and weather-sensitive delivery estimates. But the results were insane. Companies saved millions. They didn't care that I was black. They cared that I made them rich. That's the funny thing about capitalism. It's colorblind until your skin tone becomes a threat to someone else's ego. The airline industry came later. We didn't chase it. It came to us. Skyway Airlines, yes, that Skyway, was struggling with operational delays, gate mismatches, cancellations. They blamed everything on unpredictable factors. We blamed their outdated systems. We offered a back-end overhaul through AeroStream Logic, one of our tech partners. I didn't walk into the pitch meeting as Marcus the founder. I let Jules present first. They nodded through her slides, half engaged, clearly waiting for the real guy. Then I stood up. "This is what your current system looks like," I said, pulling up a heat map of chaos. "This is what it will look like in 6 months, if you let us fix it." One of the execs raised a hand. "What's your role exactly?" I smiled. "I built the algorithm. I run the company. I own the IP." The room went quiet. They didn't want to believe it. But they couldn't unsee the numbers. We got the deal. 3 months later, flight delays were down 36%. Gate confusion dropped by half. And Skyway? They promoted the guy who signed us like he'd cracked the code himself. Not once did anyone publicly credit Onyx. Not once did anyone say my name. And I let them. Because while they celebrated false heroes on LinkedIn, I kept building the architecture under their empire. They flew higher, but I built the wings. I thought I was done proving myself. I thought I could just exist in peace. But then came Flight 227, and a reminder that no matter how high you rise, they'll still try to drag you back to row 29 if they don't like the color of your passport photo. Only this time, they pulled the wrong man. I used to think the best revenge was quiet. Be successful. Be graceful. Keep receipts, but never wave them around. My mom raised me on dignity, not drama. And for most of my life, that's the lane I stayed in. I didn't clap back. I didn't name names. I let the results speak for themselves. But something shifted on that flight. It wasn't just the humiliation. It wasn't even the seat. It was the look. That look on their faces. The gate agent. The flight attendant. That automatic suspicion, like I had done something wrong by existing in comfort. Like I needed permission to belong. They didn't see Marcus, the tech founder. They didn't see the employer of 200 people. They didn't see the man who paid for his mother's house in full the day after his first Series A. They saw black skin in a first-class seat and decided it must be a mistake. And I realized then I was done staying quiet. Because silence helps no one when the damage keeps repeating itself. It helps no one when the next Marcus boards a plane, shows his ticket, and still gets questioned. After the deal with Skyway, I'd started scaling back. I was preparing to take a step away from the spotlight. Maybe build a mentorship program. Invest in startups run by kids like me. Hungry, underestimated, brilliant. But that flight? It brought the fire back. I remembered what it felt like to be 17, sitting in the back of a city bus, watching a man in a suit give me the side eye like I was about to steal something. And now, here I was, wearing the suit, and still getting the same look. Different setting. Same insult. That's when I made the decision. I wasn't just going to fight back for me. I was going to make an example. Not just of the airline, but of the system that made this behavior feel acceptable, even expected. The next day, I called my old professor from MIT, Dr. Renu Mehta, one of the few people in academia who never treated me like an anomaly. She now ran a tech ethics center that partnered with major corporations on accountability initiatives. I want to sponsor a nationwide study, I told her, on racial profiling in commercial travel. Fund it, make it public, and make it loud. She didn't even hesitate. I'm in. Then I called my legal team. I want to bring a civil rights suit, I said. Not for money, for change. They were hesitant. PR risks, backlash, retaliation. I didn't care. If you don't disrupt the system, it resets. That same week, I wired funds to a new initiative, the First Seat Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting minority travelers who face discrimination in airports and airlines. Legal aid, advocacy, visibility. This wasn't a clapback. It was a movement. One born not from rage, but from resolve. Because they tried to shrink me. So I built something too big for them to ignore. The beautiful thing about strategy is that the best moves are made long before your opponent even knows they're in a game. I didn't sleep that night, not out of stress, but momentum. My mind was a machine, and every gear was turning faster than the last. At 6 a.m., I was already dressed, sitting by the window in my suite, watching the LA skyline wake up. A fresh black notebook sat in front of me. Blank. Clean. Waiting. I wrote 2 words on the first page. Controlled exposure. That was the plan. I didn't want chaos. I wanted precision. No angry rants. No viral videos with shouting and tears. That wasn't my style. That wasn't how the real world changed. You don't change systems by yelling at them. You change them by buying the floorboards under their feet and pulling them up, one nail at a time. I started with the people who owed me favors. Derry Enning, corporate law shark, took down a Fortune 500 company in under 6 months after they racially profiled his little brother in a bank. I funded his first firm. He never forgot it. I texted, need a full rights audit of Skyway's internal policy manuals. You're not suing them. Not yet. Just looking for cracks. Employment discrimination, bias complaints, misconduct settlements. Dig quiet. Move fast. Within 2 hours, he had 2 former flight attendants willing to talk. One had quit after being reprimanded for unprofessional tone when she stood up for a black passenger who was being targeted. The other had filed a complaint after she was told she was too aggressive in feedback meetings, even though her white male counterpart cursed during those same meetings and got promoted. Pattern. Documentation. Leverage. Meanwhile, Jules was coordinating with our PR strategist, Kira, a mastermind who could light a firestorm with one well-worded press release. But I told her to wait. No leaks. No statements. Not yet, I said. People are asking for your voice, Kira replied. You sure you want to stay quiet? I nodded. We're not going to speak. We're going to shift. I knew how corporations operated. They don't respond to tweets. They respond to liability. So I started pushing the buttons they couldn't ignore. By noon, a confidential memo was circulated inside Skyway Airlines. Subject: viral video incident. Response strategy in development. Awaiting executive input. It leaked within 30 minutes. Not by accident. A friend at a marketing firm who used to handle one of their campaigns sent me the full thread. It was full of buzzwords. Unfortunate situation. Needs reframing. Explore a training workshop response. No acknowledgement of wrongdoing. No apology. Just reputation management. That was their priority. But what they didn't realize was that I was already inside their reputation. Because the software they used, their CRM, flight tracking, scheduling, crew logs, all ran through AeroStream logic. And I owned the controlling interest in AeroStream. I made a quick call to Leo, our lead developer. How quickly can we implement a system-wide flag that identifies flight attendants with 2 or more passenger complaints flagged as race-related? He blinked through the video call. That's specific. Because I'm building something specific, I said. Compliance monitoring. Industry-wide. We'll offer it to every major airline within a month. Free trial. With one condition. Full access to anonymized passenger complaint records. Leo paused. You're going to track them all, aren't you? Every one of them, I said. And publish a quarterly racial bias scorecard. He grinned. They're going to hate you for this. I smiled back. They already do. Might as well make it worth their while. That evening, I took a walk through Venice Beach. Not for the fresh air, but to clear my head before I met with someone important. Not a lawyer. Not a tech partner. My mother. She'd flown in that morning after I told her everything. We sat on a bench by the water, wrapped in the breeze, watching joggers pass and families laugh. You gonna be all right with all this attention? She asked. You never liked the spotlight. I looked down at my hands. It's not about attention, Ma. It's about accountability. If I stay quiet now, what does that teach the next kid who gets told he doesn't belong in a seat he paid for? She nodded slowly. I just don't want to see them take something from you worked too hard to build. They already did, I said. But now I'm taking it back. And I'm bringing receipts. She placed a warm hand over mine. Then do it your way. But don't lose your peace in the process. That's the thing about strong mothers. They don't just raise warriors. They remind you to protect your spirit while you fight. The next morning, Skyway Airlines made their first mistake. They issued a statement, a cold, generic apology on their website. No names, no ownership, no mention of the incident specifics. Just we regret the misunderstanding that occurred during boarding procedures. It was buried on page 4 of their press feed. I didn't say a word, but the public did. Screenshots flooded Twitter. This is your apology, people wrote. You literally removed a black man from first class for existing, and this is your response. The hashtag boycott Skyway exploded. Customers began posting their own stories. A Muslim woman who was forced to remove her hijab at the gate for security. An Asian man who was randomly selected for extra screening 3 times in one day. A Latino teen separated from his parents because he matched a vague description. The floodgates had opened, and Skyway was drowning. But I still hadn't dropped the hammer. Not yet. Skyway's corporate headquarters looked like any other glass tower. Shiny on the outside, rotten underneath. Inside, panic was spreading like a virus. The internal Slack channels leaked within hours. Has anyone seen the latest trending video tags? We're getting crushed. Comms is requesting a full staff memo ASAP. Legal wants to stall until the review board weighs in. Can someone verify if that guy really owns AeroStream logic? This can't be real. It was very real. They just didn't expect the man they tried to erase would be the one signing off on their next system update. My silence had never been louder. While they scrambled for damage control, I was orchestrating the response they tried to avoid. Truth. At 8 a.m. sharp, I walked into our downtown LA satellite office. It wasn't grand, just a converted industrial loft with exposed brick and cold brew on tap. But today it felt like mission control. Jules stood at the whiteboard drawing battle lines. Media heat map, she said, clicking the remote. A projection lit up the wall, color-coded dots marking cities where public backlash was strongest. Top 3 are Atlanta, Houston, and D.C., she said. Demographics suggest we're hitting black professional communities hardest. Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok. Good, I replied. That's our base. Let them lead. Next slide. Legal update. Darienne's team found 5 prior racial discrimination complaints buried in Skyway's HR archives, none of which were followed up properly. One of the plaintiffs is willing to speak on record. I nodded slowly. Line up the interview, I said. One-on-one. No camera crew. Just a quiet room, audio only. Let her story breathe. Jules smiled. You sure you don't want to lead the press yourself? I shook my head. This isn't about me. It's about us. If I center my voice, they'll make it personal. I want policy. I want procedure. I want pattern. Understood. She turned to the final slide. The press release. Drafted. Ready. Sitting like a loaded gun. I stepped closer, reading the headline aloud. Onxy Systems to launch the First Seat Initiative, targeting racial bias in commercial air travel. Beneath it, bullet points. National Reporting Dashboard for Racial Complaints on Airlines. Legal Support Fund for Affected Passengers. Annual Transparency Report Grading Airline Compliance. Independent Watchdog Board, with representation from civil rights groups. And finally, this begins with one story, but it does not end there. Marcus J. Rowe, CEO. I stared at it for a moment. Then, schedule it. When? Jules asked. I checked the time. 10:47 a.m. 11 o'clock sharp. Eastern Time. Right as their stock opens. She grinned. Cold. I nodded. Calculated. Meanwhile, inside Skyway HQ, the stock ticker blinked nervously. Within 15 minutes of our press release, reporters flooded their inbox. Shareholders started calling. Civil rights organizations issued joint statements. By 12:15 p.m., they were trending again, but this time not for the incident, for their silence. The public saw it. They weren't sorry. They were scrambling. The CEO, Greg Forrester, tried to go live on CNBC to address the allegations, but it backfired. He stammered through vague statements, deflecting questions, mispronouncing my name. Marcus Rowe became Marcus Rude. The clip went viral in seconds, and all I had to do was retweet it. No caption, no anger, just the video. The world did the rest. That afternoon, I received an email from Skyway's executive assistant. Dear Mr. Rowe, the CEO of Skyway Airlines would like to personally extend an invitation to meet at your earliest convenience. He wishes to resolve this matter with the utmost urgency and respect. I replied with 2 lines. The seat they pulled me from was 1A. Tell him I'll see him there. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very airline that dragged me from first class for not belonging had now cleared an entire terminal conference wing for my arrival. Private entrance. Security detail. Fresh fruit platter. Bottled still and sparkling. All for the man they'd once made sit beside a toilet in row 29. I didn't ask for it, but I accepted it, because I knew what came next. I entered the Skyway executive boardroom with Jules at my side. She was silent, iPad in hand, expression unreadable. Greg Forrester, the CEO, stood awkwardly as I approached. He extended a hand. I let the pause linger, then shook it. His grip was soft, sweaty, unearned. Mr. Rowe, thank you for coming, he said. I want to personally apologize for what happened on your flight. I didn't sit yet. Before we get to that, I said, I want everyone involved. Excuse me. I want the flight crew, the gate agent, whoever made the call. I want them here, not in uniform. In truth, he blinked. That's unconventional. So was pulling me from my seat. He cleared his throat and gestured to his assistant. Within 15 minutes, they were all in the room. The gate agent, Susan, sat farthest from me, avoiding eye contact. The flight supervisor who'd escorted me to row 29 was beside her, face pale. I finally sat. Let's begin. I clicked my remote. The projector lit up with a split-screen video. One half showed my calmly presenting my boarding pass. The other, footage from a bystander. My removal. Side by side. Every second of humiliation. Broadcast in silence. The room held its breath. I let the video play to the end. Then turned to the staff. Do any of you have something you'd like to say? Silence. Then, finally, Susan spoke. her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean to offend you. It was a busy day. I thought there was a glitch in the system. Jules tapped her tablet. According to the system logs, there was no glitch. And per your own internal documentation, 2 passengers with confirmed seats in first class were checked in at that time. The other wasn't questioned. Only Mr. Rowe was. Susan looked down. I turned to the flight supervisor. I was just following protocol, she said. We needed to resolve the issue before takeoff. Protocol. I asked. Did that protocol include forcing a fully checked-in black man to the back of the plane while leaving a white passenger untouched? She had no answer. Greg stepped in. Mr. Rowe, on behalf of Skyway Airlines, I offer you our deepest apology. This was unacceptable, and it does not reflect our values. I held up a hand. This isn't about me. It's about you, your company, your culture, the people you trust to represent you in front of the world. I stood. You humiliated me publicly. Now, I want you to be part of fixing it publicly. They looked confused. Greg leaned forward. What do you mean? I want a full apology video, filmed here. Now, the same people who removed me? I want them there. Not fired, educated, and accountable. The staff shifted nervously. Jules slid a release form across the table. Your media team will distribute it across all Skyway channels. Not hidden in a press corner. Front and center. And if we decline? Greg asked. I gave him a long, level stare. Then Aerostream pulls your tech integration by next quarter. That means no passenger tracking. No automated scheduling. No seamless dispatch. Just chaos. I let it hang. And when investors ask why, we'll show them this video uncut. Silence. Then Greg nodded. We'll do it. An hour later, the cameras rolled. The apology wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic. It was real. The gate agent apologized, visibly shaken. She admitted to unconscious bias. The supervisor followed, acknowledging that her failure to intervene was also an act of harm. Then Greg Forrester looked into the lens and delivered the most important words of his career. We didn't just fail Marcus Rowe. We failed every passenger who's ever been made to feel like their presence is a problem. That ends today. After the shoot, as the crew packed up, I walked alone to the window overlooking the tarmac. It was the same view I'd once looked at through scratched plastic from the back of a cramped cabin. Now, I owned the lens. Greg approached quietly. I imagine you've dealt with worse, he said. I nodded. I have. Why push so hard for this one? I looked at him. Because they thought it was just another seat. I stepped closer. But that seat cost me something they can't refund. Dignity. Presence. And I'm not the only one who's paid that price. He said nothing. Because there was nothing left to say. You ever watch someone really realize, that the person they dismissed holds the power to define their future? It doesn't happen with tears. It happens with silence. With posture shifts. With faces that go still when the mind starts doing the math. That's what I saw when I walked into the conference ballroom 3 weeks after the apology video went live. Skyway Airlines had partnered with our new nonprofit, the First Seat Initiative, to launch an internal education program. I'd insisted that the first workshop wouldn't be hosted by a stranger with a PowerPoint. It would be hosted by me. And the original flight staff, they'd be in the front row. The room was full. Not just flight attendants and gate agents, but regional managers, HR reps, customer experience execs. Faces from all over the company. Flown in to witness the beginning of something they couldn't spin, dilute, or hide behind. Jules opened the session with a simple intro. This isn't a PR stunt, she said. It's a mirror. And some of you won't like what you see. That's the point. Then she passed me the mic. I stood in silence for 5 seconds before I spoke. I don't want your apology. Heads turned. I want your awareness. I want your discomfort. I want you to sit in the memory of the moment you saw someone who didn't look like you, and assumed they didn't belong. I clicked the remote. On the screen, behind me flashed a single image. Me, standing at the gate, boarding pass in hand. Calm. Human. Disbelieved. I let the image speak for itself. Bias is not always loud, I said. It whispers in policy. It hides in language. It dances behind the words, just doing my job. Some attendees nodded. Some looked away. Then I pointed to the first row. Susan, the gate agent, the supervisor, a few others. You don't know this, but I asked to keep you here. Gasps. They wanted to reassign you. Bury you somewhere else. I said no. Because shame doesn't heal anything. Truth does. And truth needs to stay in the room. Susan's eyes welled up. The supervisor looked like she wanted to shrink into her chair. And yet they stayed. I walked toward them slowly, mic still in hand. I'm not here to make you feel bad. I'm here to make you remember. Because next time, when another black man walks up to your gate with a first-class ticket, you won't see a glitch. You'll see me. And you'll pause. I turned to the rest of the room. That pause? That's the seed of change. The second half of the session wasn't about me. It was a round table. Staff members shared stories, real ones. A black flight attendant who felt punished every time she reported guest complaints. A Latino gate agent who'd been passed over for promotion 5 times despite perfect performance reviews. An Asian American pilot who'd once been asked by a passenger if he was just visiting the cockpit. The stories spilled. Not in rage, in relief. And Skyway? They were forced to listen. No filters. No corporate statements. Just raw reality. Afterward, Susan approached me, hands trembling. I was scared to come today, she said. I know. I thought you'd destroy me. I shook my head. Why would I destroy a mirror? I'd rather help it reflect better. She broke. Right there. And I let her cry. Not because I wanted her to feel guilty, but because, for the first time, I saw she got it. And that was the twist. Not revenge. Reversal. She thought she was taking something from me that day. She never realized I'd end up giving her something instead. Vision. 2 weeks later, Skyway released their first racial accountability report, graded, audited, and independently verified. For the first time in its history, the company tracked complaints based on race, reviewed hiring data, and disclosed representation numbers in leadership. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And it started with one flight, one man, one seat.